Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our first live masterclass I think that we've had in this group, besides me just showing up and talking. So I'm really, really excited to have our good friend Brad Cote back. So welcome back to the group.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Super excited for this.
Yeah, me too. So today, you guys, as you have seen, and we've been talking about for the past week, we are going to be talking about Facebook ads today and how to actually use them and get results from them to help get patients in your practice. So Brad has a lot of stuff that he's planning on sharing with us today. I do have some questions that I took from you guys over the past couple of days. So please, if you're watching, whether it's live or on the replay, if you do have other questions, just go ahead and comment and we will answer them as we go. Sound good?
Awesome.
Right. Cool. Let's go ahead and get started with Brad introducing himself.
Sure. So thanks everyone for having me. Super excited to be able to share some of these tips and strategies. So I'm a health practitioner myself, and I've been in the marketing business kind of sales world for quite a long period of time. Industry altogether for about 13 years. I think this may be my 14th year. So one thing that I've really started to dive into was, especially as I was growing, is I needed to be able to bring in new patients. Now, in terms of marketing, I always say we need to have multiple channels and so on. And one of those channels I've always been using was Facebook. So Facebook is a great way to be able to generate leads, as well as being able to get patients in and broadcasting messages for very, very cheap cost. Now, the challenge can be is that there's more people that are kind of entering this world. So with that, there's more people, more competition for ads, but at the end of the day, it's still significantly cheaper than old school marketing where we had to go put ads out or direct mailers. So if you look at the other things that people used to do for marketing, like direct mail, you're looking at minimum $1,500, probably around $2,000 to be able to do an actual campaign. Facebook, you can have a couple campaigns for a couple $100s a month and generate thousands of dollars in profits, as well as being able to get lots of patients coming in. Now, I figured what would make the most sense is really talking about the overall foundations of profitable Facebook ads to begin with. So myself, I've spent over $250K. I think I'm around like $280,000 in terms of spending my own money. So I've always been an advocate for making sure that you're really taking care of your marketing especially as a startup. But really taking over your marketing so you have control over that. I'm not a huge fan of hiring agencies. Often they'll charge people, $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month, and then you end up managing $500 ad spend, and they're really just copying and pasting the same sort of ads for every single person. So I really advocate for people to take control over their marketing, and Facebook is something that's really simple that you can be able to use. And I'm going to be sharing some of these baseline strategies with you. So sound good?
Sounds good to me. I'm excited to learn.
Awesome. So yeah, I figured we kind of kick off and talk a little bit about the overall kind of strategy and a bit about like Facebook ads and like what they are and what they aren't. Because there's a lot of misconceptions that I get with people where it's like, hey, I want new patients. So I'll just put a random Facebook ad out and say, hey, I'm a physical therapist or I'm a massage therapist, buy my stuff. And the reality is that those types of things just really don't work that well. And if they do, send me a message because I'd love to learn a little bit more about what industry or who you're targeting or whatever. In my experience, they don't work well. So I always like to start and say this. Marketing is not manipulation or persuasion, turning a no into a yes. And I think that that's a big misconception that people have is like, hey, if I put an ad out, I'm just going to get droves of people coming into me. The reality is that you still need to follow the principles of marketing. It's not like Facebook is this magical platform where you put an ad out and all of a sudden you get clients coming in. The better you get at it and the more you understand, the easier it does get. So the goal really at the fundamental starting point, and we're not going to get into a lot of details here. Morgan's got more than enough help to help you with your target niche and messaging and all that stuff. But really fundamentally, you need to identify the need of the prospect or the person you're trying to attract and provide them a solution. So you've got to find customers or patients, prospects who are already saying yes and bought into some capacity. Because if you're trying to convince them to buy your massage or physical therapy appointment, chiro, whatever it is, then you're not focusing on that solution. So you've got to get dialed in with who specifically you're trying to target, what problem that you can solve that they have, and giving them an offer that makes sense for them to want to be able to mitigate the risk of starting something new or putting themselves out there. So Morgan can help you with that type of stuff. I covered a bit in terms of the programs that I go into details with, but we're just gonna save that for another day. So we're gonna assume that we know who your target market is, and you've got that problem that you solve, and you've got some sort of offer that can help them resolve that, whether that's a treatment or a package, plan of care, or whatever it is. So there's three main problems with traditional marketing. With traditional marketing by marketing to everyone. The first is it's generic and boring. So when you put ads out, and I see them all the time, get your massage, we're now open. Physical therapy is for everyone. Get back to health. The problem is that everybody's seeing this messaging, and it's not compelling. It doesn't stand out specifically to me. It's what I call a broadcast kind of statement. Everyone knows it's just random. It's like it's not thought through or anything. And the problem is that you can either be a part of the noise or you can choose to stand out. You will also have to sell harder in every single transaction, and it will take more effort because the buying is not quite understood by your ideal patient, and your ideal patient is not understood by you. So because you're out of alignment, you're going to end up having a bunch of random people who don't quite know what you do, so you get unqualified people, or you're going to have to discount heavily in order to get people to come in to see you. Now, I'm not necessarily against discounting in the right context, but the way that most people do it and the way that I see most people running physical therapy ads or massage ads is the wrong context. They're using the discount as bait because their marketing sucks and their messaging sucks. So they're using that to compensate for the fact that they don't have a good offer and they didn't want to do the good work of targeting and all these other problems before. That's you. Sorry, but that's why you're here, to get better. So we want to basically not attract those terrible patients, and that's what generic, boring messaging does. So the next thing that we really want to be able to do is we want to be able to really stand out in the marketplace, because selling becomes easier. People start coming to you. You put yourself in a position of what I call positioning instead of prospecting. Prospecting is the used car salesman, buy from me, buy this and whatnot. Positioning is like you're seen as the expert. People are starting to seek you out. They're opting into your ads. There's less friction in the sales process. The reality is that patients or clients really only want to work with the top level people. And that's partly because we always want to work with experts, and we associate experts with getting a better result or being more preeminent. And if you look at brands, one of my favorite ever is Rolex, because they are the worst at marketing ever, but they have so much preeminence, they can do whatever they want. So I was watching where people literally want to buy a specific watch. If you're not a watch person, it's not going to make sense, but there's a watch called the Daytona, and it's one of the most popular watches right now from Rolex. They only make a certain amount per year because it takes them a year to hand build them and so on. So there's so limited quantity that Rolex basically says, listen, unless you bought other watches from us before, you're not getting this one. So they have so much preeminence, people are seeking them out, that they'll pay $20,000, $30,000 more for these watches because they want direct access to them, and they will be willing to pay the price for it. Or they'll buy 2 or 3 other watches that they don't want just to get that one. So we want to get into a position where people seek us out, and it becomes less of a conversation about having to discount, pricing, and all that other stuff. So the easiest way to really do this is get honed in on your market of who you're trying to attract, what is the main problem that they have, and create an offer that's going to be compelling for them to want to get into that. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. You know, I think that like it's so important to get like that target market down and like include in there, you know, that you are talking to people who are willing to invest in their health. You know, like if you were trying to charge them out of pocket, versus like a population that maybe isn't. And like you're talking about, like if you can get that marketing piece down and then also like create that preeminence so that you're looked at as the expert, we don't have to worry about the pricing. It is what it is, and they'll pay you, you'll do the services, and it'll be great.
Of course. And I always say people pay for solutions. They don't pay for service. No one cares about physical therapy. No one cares about massage, chiro, naturopath. No one wakes up caring about that. It's just the tool to deliver the outcome that they want, to feel healthier, to have less pain, to be able to get back to playing sport, to have independence, and be able to live life on their own terms. Those are the things that people are looking for. So we want to start changing our mindset, our advertising, our marketing message to reflect that. So I know we didn't necessarily speak directly to Facebook there, but it's really important to understand those foundational components, because if you skip those, you will have ineffective marketing and you will have ads that don't work. And that's where you're going to put out an ad and say, I hear this all the time, Facebook ads don't work. And I ask the person, okay, well, what didn't work? I put one ad out for 3 days and I spent $10 on it and it didn't get me any leads. Okay, well, number one, that's not a good enough of a strategy to get any information. And number two, you didn't follow any sort of platform. You just put out a random offer and expected people to opt in for it. And people don't even know who you are, for example. So it's not that Facebook ads didn't work. It's that you didn't have the right strategy. I've spent, a lot of money, over 250 grand on ads, and I can tell you that they work. And I've generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in my own businesses from this, as well as clients have adapted these strategies. So definitely got to get dialed in, having the right strategy, and get that foundation set in. If you need help with it, Morgan, I'm sure has been able to help you get that dialed in.
Yeah, for sure.
So now we'll kind of talk a little bit about, is there any questions on that, Morgan, in the chat?
We have a question for later from Lizette about like what good books can she read. So I don't know if you want to speak to that now, but no.
Yeah, we'll cover that one. Just put that in the table, and we'll cover that one there. So now we'll talk a little bit about the ad. So what it is and what it isn't. So people think that the ad itself, if I put an ad out, I'm going to get clients. The reality is that there's different segments of the ad that have different responsibilities. So the purpose of the ad itself is to get the click. And the click could be filling out a lead form. We're going to be talking about some objectives here in a couple minutes. It could be going to the landing page and filling out information, whatever it might be. The goal of the landing page, that could be a lead form. It could be a landing page or an opt-in page that you sent them to in a conversion ad. The goal there is to get the opt-in. So when we look at the ad itself, the purpose is really to get the click. So in order to get someone to click, the first thing that needs to happen is I need to get their attention. If I don't get their attention, then I'm never going to be able to get the person to click, because they're going to scroll right past me. Now, Facebook is disruptive marketing. People are going on there to, look at pictures of cats, interact with their family, play games. They're not going on there to be like, you know what, my business sucks and I need to get help with my business, or my back really hurts. I'm going to go to Facebook to try to figure out a solution for it. People are getting a little bit more towards that. That's why Facebook's pushing groups and so on. But it's not there like Google or YouTube and so on. So the purpose of the ad, we need to get their attention. The best way to get their attention, and arguably Nick Kuzmich, who's a fellow Canadian of mine and Facebook expert, says about 80% of the ad's effectiveness has to do with the image or video, because the image or video is pattern disruption and gets people to stop. So we need to understand the person's behavior. People are scrolling aimlessly. They're seeing tons of text, photos, all that other stuff. So the commodity that you're fighting for here is attention, not other competition or businesses or ads and all that other stuff. You got to get their attention, and you need to do that with an effective image. Now, in order to do that, you want to be able to select an image that will provoke emotion to the person. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a medical-based image, but it could be something that gets someone to stop. Now, I will say there's a difference between clickbait. Like if you put a picture of like, I don't know, like a meme or something like that, like sure, people are going to stop and look at it, but they're not necessarily, you got their attention, but the next one that we talk about is connection. You're not going to have that connection, and it's not going to convert. So yeah, you can use like scary images or like images that are going to stop people, but we want to think about the overall journey. If someone stops, the next thing that we need them to do is to read where we can build the connection. So first thing, we need to use imaging, and part of that is testing. The first thing that I test with ads is the image. If I don't nail the image, then the copy and the offer and all this other stuff is not going to work. So nail the image. You've got to have something that's going to provoke an emotional reaction, ideally building on the story. So people will start to take action based on the emotion. So if you look at, like, if you posted, this is example, you'll see these ads a lot where it's like people post a picture of a guy standing in front of a Lamborghini. The reason that people are posting that is the car is not, it's the emotional reaction behind it. Oh, this guy or girl, they're super successful. I want that lifestyle. I want that freedom. And they're going through all this stuff in their mind about what that relationship could be like. Meanwhile, the person could have just rented it. I know I use an app called Turo. And when I would travel, when the world wasn't locked down, every place I went to Turo, and I go rent these cars because, it was a fun experience. It's better than buying like a Chevy Cruze or, a crappy car from the dealership. It's just more exciting. So that's what people do. But we're building this emotional based story that's deeper inside and eliciting us to be able to do it. So Nick Kuzmich says, and I really like this, is if you couldn't use any words or any copy, all you had was the button and the image, what image would you use to get the message across so that way people would want to learn a bit more? And I try to think about that when I'm doing my ads. So first thing we need to do, get their attention, use a good image that's going to get that emotional story, and dial that in. Next, any question on that, Morgan? Sorry.
No, I think that's awesome. Because like that's something that I've been like learning a lot from Paul Goff recently, is like when it comes to like your marketing and your advertising and everything, like appealing to people's emotions and like talking about like the what and the why, and then like the who with like, who you're targeting and everything and like what their life is like. It's so much more impactful and important and yields so many more results than just like posting, for example, like exercise video after exercise video after exercise video and explaining the why of like PT, OT, whatever it is, because people don't really care about like the how, because like if they agree with the what and the why and the who, like they'll kind of just fall into line with the how. And I feel like sometimes with advertising, that's one thing that people get stuck on is in their like image or their copy or whatever it is, they'll explain the how, like it's PT and like, this is how it works, versus trying to appeal to that emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we really want to be able to do, is tie in that emotion with the image so we can really capture their attention. So the next thing that we do, that the ad needs to do, is it needs to build connection. And this is what you're just talking about. It needs to not give the how. No one cares about that. First, we're going to do an assessment and this and that. The connection, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to improve your preeminence, the know, like, and trust by connecting with those ideal prospects. So one of the most effective ways to do this is start your ad with a yes question, because when you ask a yes question, the mind has this subconscious, I can't remember what the terminology is, but the mind is subconsciously is trying to answer that question. So there are a lot of people that teach, and there is some context for this where they say, hey, local area that you serve, or hey, seniors in this area, or like whatever. They're calling out a specific population. I actually find that not as effective as asking a question like that's more specific, like dealing with low back pain can be frustrating, can't it? Like where I'm getting someone to opt in so that their mind is going to ultimately start to read more. So having that really clear headline that starts with asking a yes is a really good way to start this. It's contextual for sure. We're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but it's a really good way to start off an ad, especially if you don't have a lot of preeminence in your area. So The yes gets people to start positive. It gets them to see you in more of a positive light, and it gets them to snap themselves out of the situation that they're in, because their brain is going to be searching for the answer. Well, yeah, it does suck to have low back pain. Okay, what's next? So it also helps you to do three things. One, it qualifies the prospect a bit more, because if I'm saying, hey, living with back pain can be a drag, can it? Well, if I don't have low back pain, I'm going to say, nope, next cat video. But if I do have back pain, my brain's going to be like, yeah, that sucks. Next, it builds you as authority by setting the tone. So it puts you in a better position of positioning yourself and more power and asking the question instead of answering. And that's really a big difference between when I go into sales, when I help people kind of with their sales process, it's prospecting versus positioning. And if I can put myself in a power position of asking the questions, it positions me as the expert, instead of if I'm answering the questions and they're leading, then I'm into the prospecting. So that immediately, if you have problems with sales, will help you. Maybe that's another one. So
we have some questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the next thing into there is we really want to be able to focus on building a bit of future pacing. And future pacing is getting them to focus on the solution or outcome that they can end up getting. So great, living with back pain can be a drag, can it? Well, this is why I created this program to help people get out of low back pain so they can get back to playing sports without pain anymore or whatnot. That's really bad headline, and kind of the lead in, but I'm on the hopper right now for just making up. So, but you want to have something like that builds a bit of a story. And then you can say, well, this is why I created this program. In this program, it's helped 100 different patients get out of back pain fast so they can get back to playing golf and improving their swing pain-free. If you want to learn a little bit more about this is what you get. I've got 5 vouchers or 5 offers or whatever it might be. You can utilize the offer depending on what it is. Maybe it's a voucher, maybe it's not a discount, maybe it's a webinar, workshop, so on. But we want to build a bit of story there, so that way we can build it. Now, one of the easy copywriting formulas is triple F. Feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I felt the same way too until I found this. So I could be saying, living with back pain can be a drag, can it? Well, I know how you feel because I dealt with hundreds of other patients and I actually suffer from low back pain myself. And we all felt the same way that you do now. There's no hope. I'm going to feel like this forever. And it just sucks. This is the way life goes. Until I found out my specific process for treating. And all of a sudden I was able to get myself out of back pain. And that's why it inspired me to help other patients and so on and so on. So those are different examples of a really simple way that you can use that formula to bridge into the gap. I personally find these a little more effective in terms of building a bit more directness with the ad to get conversions than the typical, what I call agency. Here's your call out the audience. Here's your voucher. This is why we're doing it. Here's the call to action, click. That's pretty much a typical agency. If anyone's running an agency here, sorry, I gave away your trick. That's pretty much it. So not everyone, but I typically see people spend a lot of money to get the same ads that are not that great. So number 2, to summarize, is connection.
Questions from the audience too.
Got it. Yeah, sure. Fire.
So going back a little bit, we had a question about how to test an image, and if there's any costs to test an image.
Yeah, so there would be a cost to test it because that would be an ad that you'd be running. And we can go through, if we have some time today, I'll go through kind of like how I set them up or sort of structure ads. But I like to test different types of images because I know that that's pretty much like one of the most important parts to get someone's attention. That's really the first step. So I'll give you some insight in terms of how I do that. So first one, we want to get attention. Second, we want to get connection. I'll give you a bit of that script. Start with yes and get into the 3 Fs. I know how you feel. I felt the same way until I discovered this. It's a good way to kind of get in the script. So the last thing that we need to have in a successful ad, now that we've caught their attention, we built some connection and some interest with what you've got there, we need them to take an action. So the action is obviously important, because if we don't tell them what to do next, we're not going to get the next result. And this, as simple as it seems, is a really big thing that people mess up. You want to have a clear call to action and one call to action. I see posts where it's like, hey, check out my blog post and click here and call here and do this. Tell people to do one thing. And what I like to be able to say for the action is, you want to be able to tell someone exactly what to do. Click the button below to claim your voucher. Click the button below to register for the webinar. Click below to schedule your call. Tell them specifically what action you want them to do. Click here and go to this page to opt in, like whatever you want them to do, be very clear and say one call to action. Usually the ads are not as bad, but it's when I get to landing pages, especially when people put their website to like a scheduling rebooker, and I could, look at your blog and about us, like it's too distracting. That's why ClickFunnels and lead pages and all those do so well, because it's one thing that they're focusing on. A squeeze page or a basic landing page, it has one action. Give me your contact information. Remember, if they're being sent to a lead ad, that's Facebook's own landing page, or if they're doing a conversion ad and you're sending them to a landing page or an opt-in page, the goal of that opt-in page is to get the person's contact information. The goal of the thank you page or the sales page is to take the next action. Maybe that's book a call with you, schedule an appointment, watch the webinar, or whatever. So it's really important to go back and look at what is the purpose of each role there. Now, the ad itself, I like to just be very clear on the call to action and make sure that that's super, super simple. And I generally have it once in the body of the ad or the ad copy, and then I'll also have it down in the headline section as well. There are a couple of things that I utilize sometimes, like scarcity. So I sort of tell people like, hey, we've got this many vouchers left. Like if we're running an actual program, I mean, we can't take that many. So we might have 20 vouchers or something, which is actual real scarcity. But there's other things that you can add into it. But for sake of time today, we'll just kind of leave it at that. So we want to capture someone's attention with the image. We want to get connection with our good headline, starting with the yes, doing the 3 Fs. And we want to have a clear call to action with what step we want them to take. And note that the call to action for the ad is to get the click. Click here to learn more. They click there, they might go to the landing page or the lead ad page on Facebook. And then that is the goal there is to get their contact information. So it's 2 separate things. Don't let the ad do everything. It will not be super successful. Make sense?
Makes sense. Just one step at a time, because that's how people function best too, is just one thing at a time.
Exactly. And I guess one thing I will say that is important too is also clearly state what offer you have. So if you're offering a free low back pain download mini course, say that's what it is, and make sure that people can look at the ad and clearly know, oh, this is what I'm getting. Back pain voucher, shoulder pain workshop. Just make sure it's really clear in terms of what they're getting. So that way you're not saying, hey, we're going to help you with low back pain here in this workshop, and then it's like a back pain voucher. It's not congruent into that. Yeah,
that makes sense. And I have another question from the audience. I've seen a lot of people ask about this. So does Facebook flag ads that say pain? Because I know like a lot of people were saying that in some of the different groups earlier this year.
There's certain like stipulations of things you can and can't say. I use pain in my ads all the time, but you can't make personal attribute comments. So you can't say, are you living with low back pain? But I can say, because I know this because I have ads running now that are like, living with low back pain can be a pain, or sorry, living with low back pain can be a drag, can't it? I can say stuff like that, but I can't say, are you living with low back pain? Do you want to lose 30 pounds? Do you have shoulder pain? We can't say things like that. But remember what I just told you with the, hey, I used to suffer from low back pain and I thought there was nothing else that could help me until I found this solution. Well, this amazing technique that Morgan helped me with was able to help me get out of low back pain so I could enjoy the things that I really love to be able to do. And since then, it's helped everyone that I've known. So that's a way that I can tell a story that is actually going to be more emotionally connected to build a deeper connection. And you don't have to say stuff like, do you have low back pain, or attention back pain sufferers? that stuff is going to get you flagged for sure.
Okay. So like saying something that's like specifically targeting the person reading it is not good, but you can talk about yourself and like generalize things.
Yeah. And just, and like from a title standpoint, you know, do you have low back pain? That's, you know, really direct, but I can say like living with low back pain is a drag. Living with low back pain can be a challenge. You know, we ran a ad for pelvic, I mean, we didn't run them, she ran it, but like a pelvic physical therapist that says like, you know, dealing with daily leakage is a problem. Like is a problem for hundreds of thousands of Americans, something along those lines. That's saying like, do you suffer from leakage? But it's like saying the same kind of concept. And that's a way you can kind of get around it.
Okay. And then somebody just asked, so how do you ask a yes question with this issue? But I think that's kind of what you just said, right? Like,
so formulate, like just reverse on how you could ask the question. So if I wanted to say, are you living with shoulder? Is daily shoulder pain stopping you from living your best life? I could say something along the lines. Daily shoulder pain can get in the way of living a healthy, active lifestyle.
Makes sense.
I struggled personally with shoulder pain, and it stopped me from playing volleyball, my favorite sport in the entire world. And as I was going through tons of physical therapy, I didn't know what was going on, how I was going to fix this. But I actually stumbled across this unique physical therapy method called, you know, Morgan's XYZ method. And from that, I got immediate pain relief. And from there, I was able to go back to playing volleyball again, and it became so passionate. So I took her XYZ program, and I was able to help all of my patients do the same thing.
Cool.
You'll be okay with that.
Sounds good.
Until Facebook changed the algorithm. Cool. So any questions on that? Attention, connection, and action.
Yep. I think we answered all of the audience questions.
Got it. So I know we've gotten quite a bit. So let's just maybe check in. Tell me what you found most valuable, people who are listening to this, and maybe Morgan, share with me what you found most valuable so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been really, really helpful. I know that like when I was first like thinking about using ads and like I've run them in the past and they've been like fine because my main objective was just to gain contact information, and that happened. So it was fine. Built my email list and everything. But I feel like I didn't really have a lot of like this background knowledge, you know, and kind of like the theory behind it and like why I would use certain strategies. I basically just looked up like the how, you know, of what to throw up there and, you know, kind of see what happens. And so I think having this background, the theory, and then, you know, the 3-step strategy that you outlined, along with like an outline for the copy of feel, felt, found, you know, that kind of like checklist like really resonates with me because I feel like I have an actual plan, you know, instead of just trying to like throw up whatever is going to happen and then I don't even know if it's going to be successful or not. Exactly.
Awesome. Any other comments or questions before we go to the next stage? I know we covered
Lizette would really like to hear about any book recommendations that you have on marketing and sales.
Yeah. Ask her if she could be more vague. No, I'm just kidding. I actually have like a video where I went through a bunch of books. In terms of Facebook ads, I haven't really found, or I haven't really read a book that sort of like is specific for Facebook ads. But if I was going to look at a book for marketing and you're just kind of starting out, Dan Kennedy has one called Direct Response Marketing. It's a really good starting point. Yeah,
and I love Paul Goff.
Yeah, Paul, I know he's a student. I've been in his programs before too, and he's a student of Dan Kennedy as well. So yeah, I like Direct Response Marketing. Jay Abraham. The reality is like a lot of the concepts are the same, but it's just like the application. So if you learn the concepts, then you can apply to Facebook ads, direct mail, newspaper, you know, blimp ads like Goodyear or something, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And the other marketing book that I love to pieces is called The One-Page Marketing Plan. And it like splits marketing plans into like 3 phases. And then each phase has like 3 components. And I feel like that one has been really, really valuable. So like when I feel like I'm spinning my wheels or I feel lost and I like don't know where to go, like just going back to that book and thinking, okay, step 1. Target market, like who am I trying to talk to? Step 2, you know, and just moving through that process.
Yeah, it always goes back to kind of the fundamentals or the foundations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So for the next section here, was looking at going through really like the actual ad setup itself. And it seems simple, but it's one of the biggest errors that people make. So I would say probably one of the biggest errors that I see people make is they boost posts, which is a complete waste of time and money. Don't do that. It's terrible. And the reason why is you have extremely limited targeting options and you basically are going to get nothing from it. So it's just not a great use of money or time unless you have hundreds of thousands of people on your business page and you've got a huge ad spend. So if you're Coca-Cola, awesome. If you're not, I probably would not advise doing this because there's better methods. So I'm going to share my screen here and let me know if you can see this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
There we go. Can you see?
There it is. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to move us out of the way and you can see this ads manager.
Yep.
So the first step that you got to do is set up your ads manager and everything like that. We're going to assume that you've done that. So we're not really going to get into the details of like campaigns, ad sets, ads. I've got a little bit of that stuff that you guys can research later. So this is just a brand new ad account. So there's nothing distracting anyone from seeing. So what we do is we're going to start our first ad. So we're going to hit create ad. Now this is the section that I want to be able to go over. And you can see this thing that popped up here that says choose campaign objective.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So campaign objective is literally like where most people actually go wrong and they select the wrong one. So if you boosted a post, you already failed. If you got here and you selected anything like brand awareness or reach, that's your second strike. The one that we really want to understand is understanding about what campaign objectives even are. So Facebook is extremely intelligent. Now, if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, I know a lot of people like hate it and are freaked out and so on. The reality is that Facebook is actually tracking you based on what actions you take. So when you're telling Facebook to run a traffic ad, for example, you're telling Facebook to show your ad to people who are most likely to click, not necessarily to take action, but to click. For example, if I show them a video view ad, I'm showing your ad to people who are most likely to watch the video. Now, when you actually set up your ad, there's a learning period, which is 5 to 7 days, which I never advise someone to change that unless you completely messed up the ad. Because if you turn off your ad or make any changes within the first 7-day period, you messed up that learning phase and you're not going to get as much as you need out of it. So where do we start? The ads that I typically use, and the one that I like for majority of cases, is conversion ad, because a conversion ad basically allows us to get people who are most likely to convert. So click your ad, go to your landing page, enter their contact information, and opt in for whatever your offer is specifically. That means you're going to have a higher quality person coming in because there's more friction in the sales process. They have to go from your ad off of Facebook, going through all of their information that you got on your landing page and opting in and so on. Now, Facebook doesn't quite like that because they want you to keep people on the platform and more distracted on their platform and maybe less distracted on yours. I don't know how to word that, but they want the people on their platform. So generally, you're going to pay a little bit higher lead cost, but you're going to get higher quality. Conversion ads, I like them way more. You have more control over them. They are a little bit more to set up because you got to build a landing page and some tracking and that type of stuff. Now, the next one that I'll use is lead gen. So lead generation ads essentially is like a landing page, mini landing page on Facebook. So you actually have a little form that you fill out, and it's already pre-filled with all your information that you sign up with Facebook from. So the advantage here is they don't have to leave Facebook. So Facebook likes that. You generally get more people opting in, but you end up getting people who just hastily opt in, and you're going to get a lot of people who are not going to be as good quality, or they're not going to remember that they signed up because it took them 2 seconds to click. And you're not going to get as much quality, but you're going to get more of it at generally cheaper amounts. Now, depending where you are in your business, this may be positive, it may be negative, and so on. If you've got a really good back-end system, your CRM, customer relation management software, so automations and that type of stuff, you could run lead gen ads and not worry about it so much. If you got a salesperson or a front desk, someone who can call these people, it's generally, you might run these types of ads. So conversion lead gen ads are primarily the go-to ones that I utilize. Now, with that being said, a lot of people use Messenger or messages ads. I personally am not a huge fan of them because the cost per lead and the sales process for friction is better with conversions and lead gen. I have yet to have a messenger ad that beats conversion and lead gen, which is why I don't really use them that often. Every so often I go back to try to use them, and they just never outperform the other one, so I don't like using them. The big problem with messenger ad is that you're sending them to your page, and you have to get their contact information, because I could have someone go to my messenger page and I don't have their contact. Whereas with the lead gen or conversion, I might never get in touch with them with the phone, but I can have them in my email sequence or text sequence, automation, that stuff. Can't do it in Messenger. There are also some other issues, like you can only contact them within 24 hours of opt-in and so on. Personally, I don't like Messenger ads. I don't run them too often. In my course and program, I have a couple examples of ones that I've used, but again, they don't outperform conversions or leads, so I just use those there. Now, there is other strategy you can use. This one is probably not going to apply for 99% of people. But if you've got everything up and running, then let's say you've got really good conversion ads, you've got good lead gen ads, you've got tons of patient flow coming in, but you want to go the extra mile and you want to build more omnipresence in your community. You can create video view ad campaigns. Now, this is a bit longer strategy because we want to basically build an invisible list. Video view ads, the advantage is that people are watching the video. So if your video is 5 minutes long, let's say, you can actually target people who've watched 50%, 10%, 95%, and so on. So the chances are if someone's watched if they've watched 50% plus of a 5-minute video, they're probably pretty switched on to what you've got, what you're offering, or they're probably more interested and more compelled than other people. So the goal here is to build an invisible list, so to speak, of those people who watch it, and then you can retarget those people with a conversion ad later on. So let's say I have a video view campaign that says, hey, if you've got low back pain, here's the top 2 exercises you can do. And all it is like, here's 2 exercises you can do. During the video, you can say, hey, if you want to get more help, click the button below, go to the website, book a call, whatever. But the goal is actually to not get conversions. This goal is to get people to watch the video so that we can retarget them later. So once we've done this, we can actually target those people and say, hey, you watched our video on overcoming low back pain. We've got a special offer right now. Click here. The theory is that you're going to build a bigger invisible list. It's super cheap to get video views, and you're getting highly qualified people because you're getting rid of all the bottom feeders who didn't actually watch your video, who are more than likely not interested in what you have, because if they were, they'd watch the video. So that's the overall strategy for that. This is not going to apply to most of the people watching this because we just need to get an actual conversion ad or lead it. We just need to get like an ad that's generating patients right away. But in the future, we could totally use it. All the other ones I pretty much would not use. I do use traffic for retargeting for people who go to my website. Again, if you're starting out, you don't have a profitable ads going up that are predictably bringing you patients in, I wouldn't mess with this. In my course, I go through traffic ads and more complex techniques. But basically, if you can get a good conversion ad going or video view campaign going, you're going to be significantly better off than not having it or using these useless ones over here. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense there. I'm trying to bring us back up. Cool. Can you see me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So any questions on that?
Let's see if any of you guys watching have any questions. Definitely let us know. But I think that all makes sense to me, because I think like that was definitely something when I first started using ads. I was like, conversions because I think I want that, and I like didn't really understand the difference between all of them. I'm glad that I never did any of the strikes against me ones. But yeah, I think that makes sense. And it's really helpful to know like which one you should pick and, like why it'll be most effective. And then the video view ads, and when to use those. So I think that's really cool.
Exactly. And I know we don't really have time to like go through landing pages and stuff, but like, the goal of really the ad is for a conversion ad is we need to get someone to go to the landing page. The goal of the landing page is to get the opt-in. The goal of the thank you page is to get the person to take the action, whether that's watch the video, book a call, schedule an appointment, whatever you have specifically in there.
Yeah. And we just got a question. Can you explain the purpose of conversion ad versus lead generator ads?
Yeah. So conversion ads basically, like I mentioned, were ads that allow you to have higher intent because they leave Facebook and they go to your personal page, whether that's a web page, a landing page, whatever. So you have a bit of a better chance to build a bit more preeminence there. They actually have to manually enter their information in, whereas a lead generating ad is a mini landing page on Facebook. They're super fast to set up, but you generally get people who are a little less qualified, but you're able to get more of them. So, there's pros and cons to both of them. I personally would prefer to run conversion ads because I don't want less necessarily lead gen, just a bunch of random people, because we get enough people from conversion-based ads. But lead ads are a really good way to sort of start without having to build out a landing page. Like if you wanted to run an ad later today, like when I teach people, I usually have them start with lead gen ads because they're super easy to set up. You can build some confidence, you can test some stuff, and you don't have to do all these tweaks to landing pages and so on.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
So what are your thoughts on that? What is the biggest takeaway?
There's so much to take away. But I think like that's helpful about the lead gen ads, especially with having like the landing page right there and then like just being able to get contact information. I think that's a really good place to start because I think that's another thing that people get intimidated by is like, oh, I have to run an ad and then I also have to make a ClickFunnels. What the heck is ClickFunnels? How do I set up lead pages? And like, I have to get something that emails people and all of that stuff. And so like just starting with the lead gen, then you can generate leads and, work on setting up more systems as you go.
Yeah. And basically like I've had people, they start with lead ads and they start getting their first leads either later that day or like within a day or so. So it's very simple to set up. So usually you kind of start with lead ads. That's kind of why, I sort of set up from there. So do you want to go into some of the questions?
Sure. Yeah. We can talk about some of our.
For now, I know we went into quite a bit. So
yeah.
In the first section, we've got to understand the function of our ads, attention. So capturing the attention, getting the connection, and getting clear call to action. And then we also want to be able to set up the right campaign objective so that we can achieve those goals and get the people to opt in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it makes your marketing and your advertising actually produce results instead of just like hoping for the best. We have a question from our audience. Will the process within Facebook trigger you to create the conversion page, or is that an outside process?
So if it's a Facebook lead generation ad or lead ad, you create the actual page in the actual ad manager itself. I know you went through the program, so it kind of makes a little sense. But basically, you build it in Facebook. If it's a conversion ad, you actually have to build the page, or you're sending them to somewhere else, whether that's your website, which I probably wouldn't advise unless it's like got one call to action on it and like a landing page, or maybe it's a other specific landing page that you have specifically for your offer.
Yeah, and I think Don, this I just did this today. Actually, it basically you create the campaign and then the ad set and then the ad and then it's inside the ad, right, Brad? That the instant form is in. Yeah, and it'll Facebook will prompt you to create the form that you put the contact information in. Yeah,
for sure. And to answer that question too, because I see that on here. It's like, well, what is campaign and all that stuff? So campaign, I say think of it like this. Campaign is like a filing cabinet. So it's where you store all of your files. obviously. I thought that was going to be more profound. So filing cabinet, where you store your files, campaign. The ad set is like a folder where you store the papers. So there's subsections of these folders there. That's where we do the targeting and the budget. So targeting of the audience, any insights you might want. You're probably not going to do much for a brick and mortar or mobile based practice, but if you're doing online stuff, you would potentially. And then the ads, is essentially the paper you put into the file or the ad set that gets stored in the filing cabinet. So that's the easiest, most simplest way that I can explain that process of how to organize what those things are, basically.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a little overwhelming when you're first starting, but then you kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Campaign is your overall objective. Ad set is the targeting and the targeting and the budget, and then the ads itself, the slips of paper that go in the file itself is your image, your copy, or the creative, the picture and stuff you're using.
Yeah, cool. And then this question, would creating a page on your website specifically about this ad be appropriate, or should we be using a completely separate landing page that someone couldn't go and scroll around the website anymore? And I think you touched on that before.
Yeah, I personally would rather have a landing page that's separate. And you could build this on your website. I have pages on my website that are just like landing pages. You can't do anything else. So it's my website, but you can't go to the blog. You can't, call the phone number. It's literally just opt-in kind of thing. So in my opinion, if I'm doing a conversion ad, I like to have one call to action, keep it real clear and concise, and making sure that that's what we're looking at there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And kind of just to speak to my experience trying to so my website right now is hosted on Wix, and I love Wix because I can customize everything the way that I want it to. But I've tried creating more than just one landing page. I have one up for one lead magnet right now, and I feel like it just kind of ended up bogging down my website to try to add more and more lead or landing pages to it kind of. And that's one thing that's really important if you are trying to drive traffic to your website is you don't want it to take forever to load. Because people I know I do, if a website takes more than 2 seconds to load, I'm out of there. I am not staying on that website. So that's important to consider too. Totally. You might want to host your website on one platform because you love it or whatever. I love Wix, but then it might be a good investment for you to use lead pages or ClickFunnels so that things are just really snappy to get your leads and your conversions done.
Exactly.
Cool. And like you said, a lot less distractions too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then I think moving into some of our other questions, I think that this, the first one that we have on our list is really important. And we might have touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but at what point in your business should you be using ads? Right away? Would you recommend?
So yeah, this is, I really say it's contextual. Now, when you should be using your ads, I would say as soon as you're ready. And how do you know you're ready? Well, you've got your market dialed in with who you're trying to serve, the problem that you solve, and you have an offer that's converted. So if you have patience and and you've tested your messaging, you know who that market is, and people are buying from you, then you've got proof of concept. I would use ads. For me, I'm a little more aggressive in my marketing campaigns because I don't want to waste time. I want to get up and running, and I would start testing things out right away. That being said, you also need to be realistic with your budget. If you're not willing to spend, I would say at the very minimum, $10-15 a day, then I wouldn't, or you're not willing to invest that much money. Let's say you're not willing to invest $100 in testing a message, then I wouldn't play with them to start. The reality is that there's so many people who want to start. I want to start $3 or $2. You're not getting enough data points to really do anything. And at the end of the day, it's if I spend $100 or $200 as a marketing test, nowhere else are you going to be able to do that. You can't even hire someone in a chicken suit outside to say, hey, flip a sign around, hey, come in, to get any return. So I would say in the mind, part of it is one, you got to have a marketing mindset, and you got to be willing to invest money to be able to test some things out. And number two, be dialed in with your offer, who you're serving in the right market.
I think so. I think having that like first kind of like milestone of, I picked my audience, I have, pitched my offer, and I have made a sale and collected income, then you have something that people are interested in.
Exactly.
So I think that's really
and I always just say, like, follow a framework, so that way you know that the ads are going to like convert, and you have less of a chance. Because I know one of the other questions that some people have asked is sort of like, well, how do I set my ad up, and how do I know if it's going to work, and like, should I hire someone or not? And I kind of said that like in the beginning, like, I'm really firm believer you should master your marketing first, because your marketing is one of the most important aspects that really kicks off sales, delivery, everything else. If you don't control your marketing, you don't control your business. So I'm a huge proponent of being able to control your marketing and understanding it first, because no agency you hire is going to deep dive and understand all the intricacies like you do, or care as much. And it's a really bad mistake. I've experimented with agencies before. It's never worked out, or they never beat the control of what I was able to do. So you should really learn and master them yourself, so you have really complete control and confidence. And then over time, you can end up hiring a marketing assistant. So I hired a marketing assistant to help me like execute. I would do the strategy and say, these are the things we want to do. Here, do these ads and like test these images, and like kind of report back to me on that. And even at doing over 7 figures, like $1 million for, I wouldn't hire someone else to do it. I have a marketing assistant, and I would really rather control that marketing aspect for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because like, it's like, one, it's your name and your reputation on the line, and so like, you have to have some control over that, at some level. Like, you want to be putting out a message that is true and genuine to you, and not just like whatever somebody comes up with. And then like, the other thing is that if you are going to hire somebody to do it for you, you have to be able to explain what it is that you want and the results that you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to have that control over in the beginning. It's not something you want to delegate out. Heard too many disaster stories, and it definitely is, a big challenge. So,
yeah. Question here. When Facebook is calculating your ad spending, does it cost more when you add more locations and target demographics?
No, basically your ad spend is related to the results or whatever you're getting. So if I'm optimizing for conversions, my ad spend is based on conversions. So you can have more locations, more demographics. I generally like to split test those to like try to see which ad's going. I don't like too many data points. We didn't really go into much of the setup. We'll kind of show you a little bit like in the program that Morgan and I have, like, to kind of explain like the setup for stuff. But no, all that's going to do is it's going to give more data points. But if you don't segment it to like test men, women, this location, and that type of stuff, then you're not going to know. It's going to give you less insight. So I like to split those things up.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, because then you can know right off the bat, like, who's looking at my ads, so then you can retarget them or put more money into a certain demographic as well.
Yeah. And you also know what images and what ads are pulling, and what people are more attracted to, and in different populations and so on. Because a 25-year-old person is going to respond differently than a 55-year-old, and so on, male and female.
Yeah. And that was another question that I know other people had about kind of like evaluating the results of an ad campaign, is like, what metrics should we be looking at? Like, what are the important numbers like in the table on the ads manager? And one person specifically asked about like the % click rate, like what is a good click-through rate to look for?
Yeah, it's kind of like, to ask those is difficult, because there's multiple points that you need to look at. In my like Facebook ads program, I have like a template. I don't know if you've got to it yet, where it actually like shows you the deliverables and like what you need to be tracking and how much ROI and stuff you get. So I generally track performance and clicks for most ads, but I actually take the numbers and I put them into a spreadsheet. I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. So that way you can actually track what your return on investment is. Because I don't really care what my click-through rate is if no one's converting. What the numbers really mean, once you kind of understand what the numbers are, it tells you where your ad is breaking down. So is your ad really good? but your landing page sucks, or is it that your offer sucks and no one's opting in? The numbers will tell you what that is. So I worry less about like what a click-through rate is or one specific number. I need to know all of them. And I kind of say this is an example of like, hey, if you come to me with shoulder pain and all I do is like a speeds test, there might be other things that are going on. I need more information, a painful arc, or I don't know, pick whatever SOT you want or testing you want. I need more information to be able to determine what's going on. The same thing with ads. So totally got to be able to track stuff. Don't get too caught up in the numbers. I've sort of like refined them down, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, are you making money on the campaign or not? You need to track them.
Right.
No one cares about your click rate if you get $0 return.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like you could have like a really low click-through rate, but if you're hitting like the revenue targets that you want, it's successful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it might not be your ad. It might be your sales process is not great. And I've had that before too. I spoke with a guy, he's getting over 200 leads a month on Facebook, and he's converting like, I don't know, 6% or something. And I was like, dude, you have no follow-up sequence. You have no conversion. Your sales process sucks. Like, it's basically like, hey, book directly into my schedule. Well, there's no value being built there. We changed a couple things, and the guy went from, he ended up getting a little less leads because we had to be a little more refined with his ad. But he ended up having way more return. I think he's breaking almost $20,000, where before he was doing $2,000 to $3,000 minus ad spend, just because we were able to tweak and refine some of the campaign in the sales process. So it's really important to note that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. And that's why it's really important to have a plan about what you're going to do with ads, exactly. And make them effective. And then last kind of question here, how long should you run an ad for?
So there's two ways to answer that. Number one is if it's working, run it forever and put more money behind it. If it sucks, it's not working, turn it off. So if I like to say there's seven days, I like to just leave ads as is. I don't like to change them. I don't like to do anything for 7 days. Unless you messed it up massively. It's a man ad and it's a picture of a woman and it's you messed something up there, just turn it off and start a new one. If you change anything within 7 days, it's going to mess up the algorithm, the learning phase, and you're going to get less conversions or whatever you're trying to opt up for. So just you have to commit to whatever it is. If it's $10 a day for 7 days, it's $70 that you need to test. Just commit to that and don't change it. After that point, I keep them running forever. So I have ads that will run forever because they just keep working. What I generally do is I add and scale that budget to get more leads to the point that you're kind of able to turn on the faucet to what's capacity for you. If the ad is not pulling all of a sudden, so maybe it's kind of slow or it's not converting well, then turn it off potentially. There's ebbs and flows too. So there might be times where, hey, you're used to getting 20 leads per month on this one and it's down to 10. There's no problem with that. I had one guy call me and he's like freaking out because his ads I think he was getting a cost per lead on a package that was somewhere around like $30. And he called me one time and it was around $85 or $65 or something like that. And he's like, dude, my ads are like bombing and whatnot. And I ran it through this calculator and I was like, well, you can afford to spend up to like, I don't know, $90 a lead. So you're still getting them on sale. So there's ebbs and flows, there's uncertainty in the world. Like it is what it is. So what do I do? Put more money behind it because it's working, basically. So it's important to like have a contextual plan and also be able to know your numbers. So that way, if your ad is like working or not. This guy, until it hits $90, don't worry, just keep going. And eventually it started coming back down. So don't ever freak out. Know your numbers. You can use a spreadsheet and it'll help you from there.
Awesome. Cool.
Never set ads with an end date ever. That's a terrible idea where it's a $100 budget. Leave it open all the time because you don't want that ad to be amazing and then it ends and then you got to redo it again and it messes up the algorithm and everything. Just never do those ads.
Yeah, because like you can, if you hate it and change your mind, you can always go in and turn it off too.
Yeah, part of the strategy that I teach too is like if you got a really good ad, try to beat it. So if you got a good ad that's doing well, the image is the first thing. Okay, cool. Maybe change the copy. Maybe change the headline. Change one thing and see if it works. Don't change it on that ad. Duplicate the ad and then start a new one, but see if you can get it to beat it. And that's partly what you always want to do as a strategy as well.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for all this good information. It was really helpful.
Awesome. I'm glad that it helps. Any more questions we can get to?
We haven't had any pop up in the chat, but looking at our list, feel like we cruised through most of the things that are on here.
Awesome.
So yeah, hopefully it'll be helpful for everybody here. I took away a lot. Like Brad mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the course that he has, and I'm halfway through it already. And still our masterclass tonight was really helpful for me. So I know that you guys will definitely benefit from his course, learning from him. Brad has a ton of really good information.
Yeah, for sure. And I can show you guys a little bit into it. So that way, if there's any questions, it'll maybe give you guys some context. Morgan and I sort of been talking for a little while. She says there's a lot of people who want to learn Facebook ads. And in the spirit of Black Friday, I was like, cool, let's come in here. Let's drop some knowledge. And if there's anyone who wants to take advantage of a special offer, I've got my profitable Facebook ads for healthcare practitioners program. That you can take advantage of, and I've got a couple spots open for Black Friday where it's a discounted rate from the regular. So I'll just kind of share my screen back in here again and just give you guys a little rundown. So this, can you see it here? There we go.
Yeah. And then if you can zoom in on the spreadsheet a little bit, that would be helpful.
Let me see. Can you see this here?
Yes.
Cool. So this is an example of the spreadsheet that I just pulled up because I figured it would be good to give context. But basically, these are numbers that we would go through in the course. There's one module that goes into exactly how much money you're making and where your ad is actually breaking down. Don't worry about the numbers too much, but just know that you've got one of these resources in here. So the membership site, basically what you'll be able to get is you'll have a private Facebook group where you can ask any questions you want and navigate through this course material into there. With that being said, you've got different modules here that are from the foundation, some of the concepts that we talked about, like how to set up your business manager in Pixel, how to really set yourself up for success, but also understanding lead flow and some of the other more foundational concepts that we talked about. And that goes into is and getting the other stuff. Then the more sexy stuff that people like to get into is the actual ads itself. So I give you guys a bunch of different types of ads. So I go through the overall objective of how to set up the ads, what the frameworks look like, and then I actually give you some different swipe files. So these are ads that I've actually utilized myself. And in the videos, I go through breaking down exactly how I use these types of ads and what the purpose is for them. And you're more than welcome to kind of swipe it. Obviously, change the name of your business and so on. So with that, you've also got a vault. So the vault has other things like how to create templates and lead magnets and all this other stuff in there. So really put together the program to help people with a step-by-step process to understanding the overall components of successful ads from a foundational standpoint, as well as being able to give you the practical stuff of exactly how to use these ads that I've actually used that I've had really good success with, and I explain why they work and giving you the swipe files to be able to do. In terms of landing pages, you also have the swipe files for the landing pages, so that also saves a lot of time, which is super helpful. So if anyone's interested in being able to take advantage of that, I'll leave a link below with Morgan, and you guys get that special discount. The program's normally $9.97, and for Black Friday, we've got 12 spaces for $197. So if you want to take advantage of it, you've got that opportunity there. But either way, super excited to be able to share some of this stuff with you guys. And if you have any questions, love to be able to reach out. And if you need help with your messaging and getting targeted and all that stuff, I know Morgan's got more than enough resources to be able to help you facilitate that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. This was super helpful. Yeah. And I know this is going to benefit a lot of people in here because a lot of the group members right now, just like myself, are definitely more beginners. And I feel like having this kind of structure was exactly what I was looking for about 6 months ago. So this is great. And thank you so much for being here.
No problem. I really appreciate it. And let me know if you guys have any other questions. And just remember, just kind of before we sign off, it's really, it's not as scary or as daunting as it can be. But you really just want to have that strategy and having a framework. And even though you're a beginner, Facebook ads could be an exponential way to grow your business. But you really want to make sure that you're, applying some strategy and some framework and some intent behind what you're doing. So that way you're able to take advantage and make sure you get the most bang for your buck.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, let's end on that note. And yeah, like Brad said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. We'll get back to you. And then Brad and I will work together to leave that link down below if you guys want to grab the course. Because like having a walkthrough to build these things is great. It's really helpful. So yeah, cool.
Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.